Hey, hey. Really the only thing that gon' be normal is distribution. Normal folks gon' infuse some. Optimize your lineups and you feed the rest, you mute them. Turning it up, these numbers are loud. Peeping this game from a nimbus is wild. Making it rain while I embrace all this risk, I'm insane. Talking about that best bell, I'm the best till into the next well. Guess I got next still. BestBell, I'm the best till into the next world. Guess I got next still.
And welcome to the BestBell Fantasy Football Podcast and live stream. I'm Bradley Stalder. Tonight, I'm going to be answering some of your fantasy football questions and also jumping into a little bit of a Thursday night preview for the Minnesota Vikings and the Philadelphia Eagles. If you like the content, you find this helpful throughout the podcast, make sure you hit that red subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. We've grown over 200 subscribers in the last week, which is phenomenal. We're now approaching 1,400, which is excellent. Just a humble channel that started a little over a year ago. And now look at us. Look at us together in this fantasy football community talking week two. Week two, we'd been waiting so long for week two. And, you know, I did a podcast like this last week, and it was really beneficial for a lot of people who were chiming in. They wanted to jump in, and they wanted to know their start sits, especially the Thursday night ones. And they wanted to know about, like, for instance, Kadarius Toney. And I offered how Kadarius Toney was a player that I was completely out on. I did not want anything to do with him. And it comes true. You know, Kadarius Toney was not a player that you wanted to put into your starting lineup. I know I don't hit on everything, but I'd say, 60% of the time is a lot better than what the average person is going to be telling you. And I'm a pretty personable guy. And so I think you should trust me, trust my stuff. And the Kadarius Toney stuff worked out pretty well. So I encourage you, continue to ask your questions, put them in the chat. Here for the comments as well. And as I said, I'm going to jump through into some Thursday night preview. So I appreciate all of you and how you supported the channel so far. You supported me, and we've got almost 1,400 subs. The channel's now monetized. We've got super chats. If you want to prioritize your chat in the comments, make sure you do that. You can do that by super chatting. So put your comments in the chat. We can talk your start sits. Thursday night football is tomorrow. It is the Minnesota Vikings. It is the Philadelphia Eagles. And this game on DraftKings Sportsbook is over under a 49. And I feel like it's a little bit of a trap. Once again, you remember last Thursday, it felt like a little bit of a trap as well. It was the second highest over under on the week, just like this week. This week, the over-under is 49, which is the second highest on week 2. 49. The highest is Kansas City Chiefs, Jacksonville Jaguars, the 1 p.m. slot. We see a lot of like 46.5s, 47 for Miami, New England. That's going to be an interesting one. 46.5 Vegas, Buffalo, and 47.5 Seattle, Detroit. But Minnesota over under 49 with Philadelphia. And the Eagles are 6.5 point home favorites in this game. Kirk Cousins traveling on the road to Philadelphia on a short week. That's going to be the main storyline for us as we're taking a look at what's going on in the Thursday night streets. Okay. Flo jumping in the chat. I live in Oregon. I'm flying to Philly tomorrow. Watching Thursday night football. I'm stoked. That sounds like a lot of fun. Fly safe. It's going to be a great time in Philly. It's going to be rocking. Minnesota, Philadelphia. These are two playoff contending teams. Philly was really put to the test in week 1 against a resurgent New England team. And Minnesota got upset pretty ugly in week 1 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So we're going to take a closer look at what some of the stats these players put up in week 1. We're going to talk about whether or not they're in a position to repeat in week 2. their performance, or if there's going to be a little bit of a shift. So, yeah, it's an exciting time here on the Best Bell Fantasy channel. We've already started getting some start sits. We've already been starting to get some comments in the channel. So make sure if you have questions about your start sits, you throw them in there. All right, cool. So let's take a look. GV is asking PPR flex, Rashid Shaheed, Khalil Herbert, Christian Kirk, Zach Moss, Elijah Moore. So let's do some process of elimination. We're not going to start Zach Moss. Sorry, it's not going to happen. So we're crossing Moss off the list. That makes it easier. We're also not going to start Christian Kirk. Problem with Christian Kirk is that he's not playing on 2 wide receiver sets like he was last year. Instead, the 2 wide receiver sets are Calvin Ridley and Zay Jones. That's a problem for Christian Kirk. It's a problem because he gets pulled off the field, and when he is on the field in 3 wide receiver sets, it's Evan Engram also there in the slot. So we can't be trusting Christian Kirk. Could he go off in the highest over under game at home? Sure, it's possible. But that's more, we are driving our decision based on usage, and right now Christian Kirk is not a player that we can trust usage wise. Looking at how the Jacksonville Jaguars deployed their wide receivers, 35 pass snaps for Calvin Ridley, 34 pass snaps for Zay Jones, 23 pass snaps for Christian Kirk. Kirk is not on our radar. In fact, if we look at the PFF receiving grade as well for Christian Kirk in game 1, 58.1. Ridley was at 75. Zay Jones was at 74.6. Zay is operating 35% of the time in the slot. Christian Kirk, 91% of the time in the slot. And the yards per route run it's clearly Calvin Ridley is the alpha, nearly 3 yards per route run. Zay Jones at 1.7 and Christian Kirk at 0.4 through 1 week. So you're probably thinking to yourself, man, oh man, this is tough. It's not going to be looking good for Christian Kirk. I mean, let's look at the matchup. Jacksonville, Christian Kirk gets primarily the matchup of Williams, the right cornerback. So that might be even an average matchup, but he's also projected to get McDuffie as a slot corner primarily at 45 projected snaps. And that's going to be a problem because McDuffie's pretty good. So tough matchup for Christian Kirk. He's getting pulled off the field, sharing the slot with Evan Engram. Yeah, it's not looking good for Christian Kirk. So Moss is out. Christian Kirk is out. Elijah Moore is interesting because his usage indicated that he's probably a wide receiver too. And the Cleveland Browns play the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. The over-under is only 39. And without a shootout potential, I'm staying away from the wide receiver too in a matchup where it could be very bad for Cleveland. Pittsburgh and San Francisco in their matchup in week 1 had the number 1 and number 2 pressure rate on quarterbacks among all teams. And so if Deshaun Watson's getting pressured, it means he's probably rolling out and he's probably scrambling a lot. So I'm considering benching Elijah Moore. Now it's also Khalil Herbert is having his own issues, right? We look at how the snaps played out in the Green Bay Packers Chicago Bears game, and that's also concerning because Roschon Johnson had 5 carries, but he also had 6 receptions on 7 targets in catch-up mode. Donta Foreman had 5 carries. Khalil Herbert, 9 carries, so he led the team. But in these, are we confident with what the Bears are going to be able to do in week number 2? Tell me you saw what you wanted to see from the Bears. Tampa Bay played inspired, and in week 2, the over-under is 40. Can Khalil Herbert fall in the end zone and salvage your day? I mean, probably not. That's the concern, is that Khalil Herbert is in a 3-way kind of share with his other Chicago Bears peeps. And so I'm out on Khalil Herbert. I think Roschon Johnson showed he has the juice. Johnson, 79.5 PFF rush grade, 2.6 yards after contact per attempt is respectable. And what's even more impressive is Roschon Johnson, 82.5 pass block grade. So not only was he catching a lot of passes, like he caught 6 passes for 35 yards, his yards per route run was 2.06, which is respectable for running backs. And his pass block grade was 82.5. So he can play on third downs. And so Roschon Johnson, probably a priority. I hope he's been a priority ad for you in your fantasy drafts, in your waiver wire. Khalil Herbert, I think, is kind of in a little bit of a trouble. And even if we were to say, oh, well, Khalil Herbert will get, double-digit carries in this game, against the Tampa Bay front seven, that's tough. That's a tough sell. So I am concerned about Khalil Herbert holding on to that role. Instead, let's look at the New Orleans offense, because Rashid Shaheed played very well in this game. 5 receptions, 89 yards, a touchdown, 76.5 receiving grade. And Rashid Shaheed, 25 pass snaps, mostly out wide, sharing with Michael Thomas, but Thomas also playing in the slot. So there was a lot of rotation inside and outside. But what's really encouraging for Rashid Shaheed is if he's out on the field, he's going to run routes and he's going to run deep routes. His ADOT was 16.5. So he's a big play waiting to happen. And 5 targets on 25 pass snaps, that's a 20% target rate. So I'm here for that. Let's go. I like that. So give me Rashid Shaheed in this matchup. I know that the New Orleans Saints, are one of those teams that we're still trying to figure out how they're going to be deployed. But against the Carolina Panthers, the Panthers are going to be without J.C. Horn in this game. And that is a massive shift. J.C. Horn might be out for weeks, if not for, a couple months with his injury. And so playing on the outside, Rashid Shaheed is a big time smash play, I think, for us. The matchup is just right. On the outside, it doesn't look great, but with J.C. Horn being out and based on what Rashid Shaheed has done in the past, yeah, give me a high upside shot on Rashid Shaheed. Okay, cool. Serendipity Trick Shots, shout out to you. Who should I flex? Ken Walker, Michael Thomas, Kyron Williams, not Karen Williams, Zay Jones, Kendrick Bourne, or Hollywood. We're definitely going with Ken Walker. We're flexing Ken Walker. Seattle is facing Detroit at home. That's going to be pretty nice. The over-under is 47.5. We want in on this game. So we want Kenneth Walker, the lead back. It was clear that Kenneth Walker is going to be the running back that you want in Seattle. I mean, Zach Charbonnet was not much. He did not do much. Charbonnet only 3 carries, 11 yards. Kenneth Walker, 12 carries. So 4 times the amount of carries, 5.3 yards per attempt, 72.6 rush grade is respectable, 3.67 yards after contact per attempt for Ken Walker. He was crushing, right? 2 rushes of his 12 went for more than 10 yards. Yep, we love that. And what was even more impressive, Ken Walker caught 4 passes. Who would have thought? Pass catching Ken Walker. Right? His pass blocking was 73.8. What if Ken Walker turns into a 3-down back? The 3-down back we expected Zach Charbonnet to be. What? Let's go. So Ken Walker, I know it only translated into 3 receiving yards, but nevertheless, you're playing Ken Walker for sure. Okay, now then it comes down to Michael Thomas, Kyron Williams, Zay Jones, Kendrick Bourne, Hollywood. Okay, I think you need to go back and think about what I talked about with the New Orleans Saints wide receivers, right? They are facing off against the Carolina Panthers. And Michael Thomas caught 5 passes in week 1, 7 targets. He out-targeted Rashid Shaheed, 61 receiving yards, 65 .9 PFF receiving grade was not great, but playing primarily out of the slot, if the teams are trying to if the Panthers are trying to compensate on the outside with the loss of JC Horn, because Olave is going to move everywhere, then that may even open up Michael Thomas for this game to be a little bit more of a shootout than is projected for right now. The over under for this New Orleans Saints Carolina Panthers game is 40, and I think you're going to get the over on this game. I think it's going to be a little bit more. You're thinking, though, okay, should I take a shot on Kyron Williams? Should I take a shot on Zay Jones, Kendrick Bourne, Hollywood? I like Michael Thomas. I think he'll be okay, but I think he lacks the upside that you want. He might have a really nice floor, but he's a floor play. So if you are thinking, I just need to not bust it, Michael Thomas is probably not going to bust for you. But if you're taking a shot on like highest upside play, if you're taking a shot on high upside play, I mean, look at what New England did this past week. They really pushed the Philadelphia Eagles, got into a little bit more of a shootout. This was the first time Mac Jones got into the 23 plus fantasy point range, like ever. This is ridiculous. And so New England this week faces off against Miami. Over-under is 47. We just saw New England push Philly, and New England is only 3-point dogs at home against Miami. So I would want to take shots, especially if we find out that Devontae Parker is out. Like, let's look at what Kendrick Bourne did just a little bit more in depth. Kendrick Bourne, 6 receptions, 11 targets. He caught 2 touchdowns. And we know Bourne has a tendency to fall in the end zone. We like that. But the 11 targets is what really is interesting to me. He ran the most pass snaps, or played the most pass snaps. Only played 25% of the slot, mostly out wide. And if Mac Jones is pushing the ball down the field, that's interesting to me. Kendrick Bourne, right? His ADOT was 12.5, which was the highest among wide receivers not named Kayshon Boutte. Kayshon Boutte was bad, though, even though he played 43 pass snaps. He was real bad. He played really bad. I thought Boutte had a catch in this game, but it's recording that he did not have a catch in this game. Interesting. We might have to refresh the data here. Nevertheless, if you want more upside, I think Kendrick Bourne is your upside guy. I think Michael Thomas is your safest play. Kyron Williams is a wild card joker, because it could just be that Cam Akers gets 20 touches again and Kyron Williams is your whatever. Yeah. So I think we're going to go with, it depends on what you need. Ken Walker obviously is your start. Michael Thomas is the high floor play. I'm not in on Hollywood. Zay Jones, I like how he's playing, but the touchdown, I think, misled people in fantasy points, like 5 for 55 on 5 receptions. That's not anything special. But Bourne getting 11 targets is certainly notable in a big shootout game. So give me Bourne as the upside play if you're down big and you need a guy to take a shot on, boom, bust. Michael Thomas is your safe play, though, for your flex. All right. We've got a question about bench spots. Who should we have, Elijah Mitchell or Tank Bigsby? Pretty easily Tank Bigsby. Bigsby was the goal line back on one occasion in week 1. The Jacksonville Jaguars want to integrate Tank Bigsby pretty regularly into their offense, give Travis Etienne some breathers. There were times last year where Etienne was losing his efficiency because he was being ridden so hard by this Jacksonville offense. And Elijah Mitchell, it's clearly Christian McCaffrey getting all of the meaningful touches. So give me Tank Bigsby as a standalone piece. And also, we know he's the direct handcuff. If Elijah Mitchell, is getting meaningful work it probably means that Jordan Mason is hurt, and Tyrion Davis-Price is hurt, Deebo Samuel is hurt, and Christian McCaffrey is hurt. There's just so many other players that could be siphoning off meaningful touches away from Elijah Mitchell. Tank Bigsby is the clear handcuff. That's who I'd prefer. Samaje Perine or Khalil Herbert. Samaje Perine. Yeah. I mean, split 50-50 instead of Khalil Herbert splitting mostly three ways. And Herbert might just lose out. Plus, Herbert is not known for being a receiving back. At least Perine has that skill set. Whether or not he's very effective, he's capable of doing it. As brought over to be able to do that for Denver. And Javonte Williams is still working his way back. Richard said half PPR, Rashad White, I'm assuming, Puka Nacua, Miles Sanders, Roschon Johnson, or Chris Godwin. Well, I feel like we have to give Chris Godwin some props. I mean, last year he worked his way all the way back from a disastrous knee injury, and 5 for 51, 6 targets, didn't get the touchdown. It was instead Mike Evans who got the touchdown, 66 yards, 9 targets, 6 receptions for Mike Evans. But Godwin played all the snaps. He got 6 targets, and this Tampa Bay offense is, I think, going to be it's going to continue to surprise. And we saw how the Bears were just lit up by the Green Bay Packers. There was a lot of motion. There was a lot of movement. And Baker Mayfield, not a great player, but he's a competitor. You have to give it to Baker. Whatever he misses in skill and doesn't have as a quarterback skill set, he's got heart. You got to give the kid credit. So Godwin is 10 points, a high floor, 10 points, probably can get to 16 if he falls in the end zone. Miles Sanders, man, Miles Sanders. I'm not a big fan of Miles Sanders. Chuba Hubbard was very interesting. Rashad White is gross. You need to you know what I did in a dynasty league, and maybe it'll bite me in the butt, but I traded away Rashad White for Puka Nacua. And you're thinking to yourself, Bradley, what are you doing? Yeah, well, here's the thing. Good wide receivers don't grow on trees. Good running backs, on the other hand, are mostly opportunity driven. And the reason why Rashad White is getting fantasy points is because of his opportunity. And I am concerned that Rashad White he's not good. Rashad White, 71 rush grade, fine. 2.3 yards per attempt. 2.3. You're telling me that Rashad White, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, facing off against the Minnesota Vikings could only muster 2.3 yards per attempt? Right? What? 1.94 yards after contact per attempt. Nothing amazing. His pass blocking was fine, but everyone was like, oh, Rashad White, he's going to catch 5 passes. He's going to catch 6 passes. He's going to be so amazing. No, Rashad White, 2 receptions. In fact, Sean Tucker had 2 receptions. No. Rashad White is garbage. Trade away Rashad White. Trade him away before he loses his job. Rashad White, 2 receptions. Sean Tucker, also 2 receptions. But the yards per route run, 2.25 for Sean Tucker. 0.48 for Rashad White in week 1. Just bad. I got into an argument with Matt Kelly, a player profiler, the Podfather, and I will, continue to harp on this. I told Matt Kelly Rashad White was just Chase Edmonds 2.0. His inefficiencies were going to get him, and Matt said, oh, it's a small sample size. Well, that small sample size is getting larger week by week. Now, will the Tampa Bay Buccaneers move away from Rashad White right away? I doubt it. I mean, they only gave Sean Tucker 5 carries. But Tucker, more yards per attempt, better yards per route run, better yards after contact per attempt in the small samples. Yeah, give me some Sean Tucker as a deep league running back stash. Rashad White just isn't particularly good. That's the concern. So get me out of there. Puka Nacua is hard to start. I like him. I like his role. I like him as a prospect. I think very interesting in Dynasty. I just said I'd trade away Rashad White for Puka because I believe that Puka is good, but this is a tough matchup against San Francisco. Remember, George Pickens was getting it was tough sledding for George Pickens. It was tough sledding for Deontay Johnson. It was tough sledding for Pat Freiermuth, right? It was tough. It was just tough. And looking at what the wide receivers did, like Deontay Johnson, 3 for 48, 6 targets. Calvin Austin was the interesting one because everyone forgot about Calvin Austin, the 4th round pick from a year ago. 4.2 speed, Calvin Austin, Spike Week King, Calvin Austin, 6 for 37. But like Allen Robinson, 5 for 64, only when Deontay Johnson left. Pat Freiermuth, 1 for 3 with the touchdown. Pickens, 5 for 36. Like, that's not going to get it done. That's what San Francisco was preventing in week 1. Now in week 2, it's the LA Rams, and the only, I mean, Tutu Atwell, fine. You want to talk to me about Tutu Atwell, so be it. But Tutu is not an impressive player. Puka Nacua, on the other hand, had college production. And I don't know what held up people. I mean, it was maybe the athletic profile, but we've seen, quote unquote, unathletic wide receivers find good roles. All right. You think of, there was, give me a second. I'll find him, but maybe I won't because one of the sites is down. There we go. Okay. Maybe it'll work. If it doesn't, whatever. I'm fine with Puka. Give me some Puka. I don't think Roshan takes over this week though, and that's why I'm not going to start him in half PPR. These are all gross. Richard. Rashad's going to get the volume is the problem. Like this, we're talking 1 week. In Dynasty, I trade away Rashad White, but in 1 week, getting the volume, he's so bad. Give me Chris Godwin. We're making a final decision, Richard. We're giving Chris Godwin. Look what Romeo Doubs was able to do against this Bears secondary. 2 touchdowns. And Doubs isn't that great of a prospect, okay? This is what Christian Watson was supposed to do. So Chris Godwin will be just fine against this Bears secondary. Give me Chris Godwin. Final answer. There you go, Richard. What tight ends do I like on free agency serendipity trick shots? I like Hunter Henry. Yeah, that's a good one. He was my tight end 1. He was not my tight end 1. He was a top 13 projection tight end for me going into the season, and I was way ahead of consensus on Hunter Henry. So give me some Hunter Henry on the waivers. Zach Ertz, if he's out on waivers, earned 10 targets. You can't ignore that. And if someone, I know that Mark Andrews is supposed to play, but if someone dropped Isaiah Likely and you're in the deep league, like pick him up again. Now, I will die on the Isaiah Likely hill. He's a good prospect. He's a good player. He had massive production when Andrews was out. And you have to think philosophically, when are you going to start Isaiah Likely? When Mark Andrews is out. And tight end was historically bad last week. Some people, like, I don't know if you joined me in the Saturday live stream, but some people were saying, hey, Bradley, should I start Dallas Goedert or Isaiah Likely? And I said, start Dallas Goedert. I was wrong there too, right? There were only a couple tight ends that I had ahead of Isaiah Likely, and Dallas Goedert was one of them, and it just did not work out, right? Goddard gave the 0. There you go. Will McLaughlin, thanks for tuning in, Will. If you're new, make sure you hit that red subscribe button. I appreciate you jumping into the live stream. Should I trade Garrett Wilson and James Cook for Jahmyr Gibbs and Brandon Ayuk? So you are receiving Gibbs and receiving Ayuk. I want that side, the Gibbs Ayuk side, for sure. Let's go that way. Gibbs only played like 25% of the snaps and looked outstanding. He passed the eye test for for sure. And then Ayuk just came off of the wide receiver 2 overall this week. So yeah, give me that. James Cook is fine. Like, I'm okay with James Cook, but the real wild card here is Garrett Wilson. Last year, this is what's really impressive. Last year, where'd my note go? I wrote a whole note about this. Whatever. Zach Wilson played 9 games last year. In those 9 games, in those 9 Zach Wilson games, Garrett Wilson was in the wide receiver 30 yards per route run, wide receiver 30 in receptions, wide receiver 30 in receiving yards, and he had 0 touchdowns in that 9-game span last year. Yes, Garrett Wilson got the 1 touchdown, but did you see the play? It was a miracle that he came down with it, and it was only because Garrett Wilson can make Garrett Wilson plays. We're going to see more like that, but maybe he doesn't come down with it the next time. Like, what are we calling that? A 50-50 ball? More like a 25-75 ball that he most likely doesn't come down with it. So yeah, give me the Gibbs Ayuk side. Buy low on Jahmyr Gibbs. Buy into Brandon Ayuk as at least a wide receiver 2 play, right? A top 24 play week to week with, as we've just seen from week 1, a pretty nice ceiling. Cool. Dadalorian, thanks for joining. I appreciate you jumping in. Just dropped Deion Jackson for Justice Hill. Judge me. Fine. You do you, man. Like, it's ugly in Indy. Deion Jackson played so terribly in week 1. I had to start him in a couple leagues, and it was not good. I somehow won one of the leagues, or won my matchup with Deion Jackson still. Oh, talk about desperation. But Justice Hill has the athleticism. The problem is, I don't know if Justice Hill is particularly good at playing the running back position in the NFL. I don't know. It's a problem. I don't know that is the case. Okay, I found the comp. The comp for the unathletic but productive wide receiver that I mentioned earlier, Anquan Bolden. Okay, yeah. A power slot receiver. I mean, we remember Anquan Bolden. He was an absolute stud. 2nd round pick out of Florida State, but a 4.7 240, 33rd percentile speed score, a 15th percentile burst score, 10th agility, and 8th percentile catch radius for Anquan Bolden. Okay, 6'1", 220. Puka Nakua, 6'2", 210. I mean, he's got a respectable speed score. And Puka Nakua's player profiler comp, Stevie Johnson. Stevie Johnson had 3 straight seasons of 130 targets or more and over 1,000 receiving yards. So give me some Puka Nakua, in your dynasty leagues. I have almost 40%, and I've been trading for more because now, like, people are willing to trade with me about Puka Nakua. They're trying to sell high what they perceive to sell high on Puka Nakua, but no, we want Puka. All right, looks like I've answered a lot of the questions in the chat. Let's jump into some of the Thursday Night Football previews. Obviously, you are starting Justin Jefferson no matter what. Like, there is no reason for you to not start Justin Jefferson. That's kind of crazy that anyone would consider not putting Justin Jefferson into the lineup. The reality is, though, there are some of you who play, like, I don't know, 2-team leagues or head-to-head matchups. And just for what it's worth, the Minnesota Vikings, Justin Jefferson projects to play the most against Josh Jobe, the right outside cornerback. And that's a great matchup for Jefferson. So I expect that he's going to just continue to feast. And Avonte Maddox, he'll still feast on. And Jefferson will probably move away from Darius Slay as much as possible. Probably won't get the Slay coverage. But looking at who will, Slay looks or projects to move between all 3, Osborne, Addison, and Jefferson, but the fewest with Justin Jefferson. So I would not be worried about Slay shadowing Justin Jefferson in this matchup because Jefferson is going to move over all around the formation. So give me Justin Jefferson, play him with confidence. There's no reason for you to be benching him. He should be a staple in your lineups. And I know he busts from time to time, but he still was had the second highest rate of flex weeks in your best ball leagues last year, only behind Cooper Kupp. In rate of which, games played, Justin Jefferson was as consistent and high ceiling play as it is. Let's talk about Jordan Addison, though. Jordan Addison gets some tougher matchups, right? Addison is really low. He's projected to play a lot against Darius Slay in this matchup. And while we expect that Addison does move around the formation again, I wonder if the rookie is going to be able to get anything going against Darius Slay in his targets against Slay. But let's look at what he was able to do. This rookie, Jordan Addison, was able to do in week number 1. Jordan Addison, 4 receptions, 61 yards, a touchdown. He played on 32 pass snaps, which is pretty good, but not a full-time role. Still playing behind KJ Osborne. Jefferson played 48. Osborne played 45. Addison 32. So there's still a ramp up period. I would not expect a massive spike week for Jordan Addison, and probably looking elsewhere in the flex radar. I did like Addison's red zone usage. He had 2 red zone targets in this game, and he has a 15.3 yards per reception in a game that we project could be pretty high scoring based on the DraftKings Sportsbook. However, my pushback is it's a tough matchup. It's a short week. They still haven't given him full complement of snaps from the wide receiver role. And 1.97 yards per route run isn't atrocious. Like Osborne is 0.70. That's really bad. Like Addison is clearly better than KJ Osborne, but the problem is Addison is playing 70 to 75% of the KJ Osborne snaps right now. Maybe he does ramp up a little bit, now that we're into week 2, but it's still a short week. And most teams don't even practice. So especially in this second week, I wouldn't expect Jordan Addison to ramp up. Like, could he get 5-6 targets in this game? Sure. I would not expect double-digit targets for Addison. I would not expect a spike week from Addison in this game. So he's a player that I'm benching in favor of other matchup candidates. Like, we can certainly talk about it in the chat, but Jordan Addison is not a player I'm keen on going out of my way to start this week as a wide receiver 2-3, because you're not putting him in your flex. Like, he'll be flex worthy or level, like if you put him in your lineup, but I'm not looking to put him in my lineup. But if I do, you have to move him into that wide receiver slot because it's Thursday night game. Okay, let's take a look at what the chat is responding to and said all of it. There we go. The Ivy Catholic. Thanks. I appreciate you. Love your content, Notre Dame gear. If you guys are new and you like the content, make sure you hit that red subscribe button. Yeah, go Irish. Go fighting Irish. Claim Jamal Williams off waivers for Rojo. Looking for the best long-term option, looking for upside. Like Ronald Jones, Hunter Clark. Yeah, you want to be picking up Jamal Williams over Rojo. But if you're referring to Roschon Johnson, no, give me Roschon Johnson long-term over Jamal Williams. Alvin Kamara is only suspended 2 more games. So give me Roschon Johnson over Jamal Williams. But if it's Ronald Jones, no, we'd rather have Jamal Williams. Okay, serendipity trick shots. I hate starting Higgins. Lost me the week. Should I start Mike Evans or Michael Pittman over him? I think the argument could be made for Mike Evans. I think that T. Higgins is going to do better, right? If we look at what T. Higgins did in week 1, obviously he goose-egged, which stings. But it's also that he had a 45 PFF receiving grade, no receptions. He played all the snaps. Yeah, and it was just disaster zone. Average depth of target, though, was 20.7. Nearly 21 air yards per target. We're talking 140 yards. So the attempts were there for T. Higgins. The depth of attempts were there. The problem was he didn't convert any of them. And then when you're throwing it deep, you might fall on the wrong side of variance. And look, credit to Cleveland. They played their butts off on defense, number one. If you looked at some of the plays that the Cleveland defenders made, they played their butts off. Second, it was rainy. It was a rainy day, and that's a problem. Third is that we'll talk about the Cincinnati Bengals as a team that I think will continue to start slow. The Bengals are 3.5-point favorites at home against Baltimore. But Joe Burrow did not look good in this game. The offensive line looked bad for the Cincinnati Bengals. And if the offensive line looks bad and Joe Burrow's calf is still bothering him, I think we're going to have to wait one more week before we can put Higgins into the flex. And I understand that, maybe he does explode this week and he had a nice air yard share. But I also am concerned that he's not going to give you like a top 10 week, even if he does spike, right? His T. Higgins ceiling is like wide receiver 12, wide receiver 15. But unfortunately, like maybe he has one top 8 week this season. It's just not in his range of outcomes for Higgins to be a top 5 weekly wide receiver if you're rolling the dice. So give me a Mike Evans in a game where we just saw the Green Bay Packers light up, just absolutely annihilate the Bears. And this is a home game for Tampa, who is favored over the Bears. The over-under is 40.5, but I mean, Indy, the over-under is 39.5 against Houston, in Houston. You think the Texans are just going to continue to run the ball? And I think they'll use Dameon Pierce and Devin Singletary, and CJ Stroud was fine. But once again, I think that this game with Tampa and Chicago could be a little bit more of a slugfest than what is being projected. So give me Mike Evans. There you go. The Ivy Catholic, love your stuff. Thanks for everything. Appreciate you jumping in the chat. The Ivy Catholic. Do I panic about Jamar Chase right now? Nope. No panic. Chase led the team in targets. He led the team in receptions. Led the team in receiving grade among wide receivers. He played all the routes. His ADOT was 10, so he had 100 air yards or so. I mean, you're going to have to temper expectations for Jamar Chase, but you're still putting him in your lineup. There's no way you're not. There's no way you're not. Hunter Henry or Tyler Higbee this week. Oh, man, we are scrounging. We are absolutely scrounging. Give me some Hunter Henry, baby. I know that the LA Rams are taking on the San Francisco 49ers, and that's all you need to say. The 49ers are stifling on defense. Give me Hunter Henry. That over-under for the Miami-New England game is 47. And if we think about who's going to contribute, I mean, it was Hunter Henry who led the team, Hunter Henry led all tight ends in receiving yards in week 1. So yeah, give me some Hunter Henry. Do we have any hope for Alan Lazard now? Oh boy. Why'd you do this to me, Dadalorian? Why did you do this to me? It hurts my soul that you would bring up the Aaron Rodgers injury. It's just devastating to me. It's just devastating. And the answer is no. There's no hope for Alan Lazard. Lazard is DOA. I hope you didn't draft much Lazard because it's bad. It's really bad. If you think Garrett Wilson is in trouble, Alan Lazard is in a lot of trouble. In this game, Lazard played as many pass snaps as Garrett Wilson. He was a full-time player. Lazard, 2 receptions, 4 targets, 23 yards per reception. So, I mean, that's pretty nice. His longest play was 24 yards. So 22 and 24 yard receptions. but a 59 receiving grade, just terrible. He had a drop in this game, playing mostly out wide in 2 wide receiver sets along with Garrett Wilson. The yards per route run is okay, but Lazard is a DOA player, low pass volume. The Jets moving forward are going to lean very heavily on Dalvin Cook, first and second down, sprinkle in some Breece Hall, and then Breece Hall, third downs, plus giving Dalvin Cook breathers. I think they'll continue to have this be a two-headed monster in New York. Oh, and Breece Hall, so efficient, so explosive. We love it. We love Breece Hall. Okay. Are we going to play Goddard or Laporta? Oh, this one is gross too. I mean, you got to roll out Goddard. You got to roll out Goddard. I know Laporta could fall into the end zone against Seattle, and Seattle is historically very, very, very bad against tight ends. I mean, think of last year. TJ Hawkinson lit up the tight ends. So could Laporta have a nice day? I don't mind starting Laporta. But Philly, if we're thinking that this game does get into a shootout, Goddard is most likely going to be involved in this game. Like, I don't know why he didn't get any targets. It's just, I think, a fluke. Tight ends, we can throw week 1 out for tight ends altogether. I'm not worried about Dallas Goedert. There's no long-term warning signs. We didn't hear about injuries or anything that I know of. So there's no reason for us to be fading away from a Dallas Goedert player who you, in tight end premium leagues, paid a pretty penny in terms of draft capital. We like the offense. We like what Goddard did over the last however many years. PFF receiving grade, yards per route run, all of it is impressive. And Laporta, we like Laporta, but I think that's a riskier play. I think Laporta is a riskier play. Could Laporta? Lord knows. It's a nice over-under. And Detroit is 5.5 point favorites at home. That's going to be real nice. But I would still lean Goddard, even with the bagel that Goddard delivered for us. Aaron Jones might be out. Hey, Alex, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you. Stop talking so badly about Aaron Jones. No, I get it. But Alex, if you're new, and all those who are watching, if you're new and you like the content, you find this helpful, hit that red subscribe button, y'all. I don't know, are we at 1,400 subs yet? It's pretty close. It's probably pretty close. If not, yeah, make sure you guys are slamming that subscribe button. We're 5 away. We are 5 away from that 1,400. So if you like the content, find it helpful, make sure you hit that red subscribe button. Aaron Jones might be out. That's right. Do I start Breece Hall or back up AJ Dillon? You are starting Breece Hall. You're starting Breece Hall. Start 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 Breece Hall. Start. How many times do I have to say it? Start Breece Hall. Breece Hall is good. Breece Hall is very good. I just put a video on Player Profiler. So for those who are new, I'm a fantasy analyst. I do a lot of work on Player Profiler. You can follow me on Twitter at FFStalder. And I just did a video for Player Profiler. I did a live stream earlier tonight. So this is now into hour 2 of live streaming for y'all. So let's go. Let's get it. So I do live streams for Player Profiler, but this is my personal channel. This is my personal stuff. This is my baby, my BestBell Fantasy Football. And I just did a video where I talked about how Breece Hall led all running backs in week 1 in yards after contact per attempt. He had 13.1 yards after contact per attempt, which is the highest single game yards after contact per attempt game for any running back with 5 or more carries since week 7 of 2022 when it was Breece Hall. Breece Hall is an explosive running back. And we saw that. I know he didn't house that run, but his burst and his acceleration is there. It's just that final finish that it's clear that he's not 100% back from his ACL, but 80% of Breece Hall is better than 130% of Dalvin Cook. Okay, so there you go. That's what I have to say about that. Stephen Joe, appreciate you jumping on. Welcome to the channel. Offer to Walker and Mike Evans. Give away Gibbs, Roschon Johnson. What do you think? I like the Walker and Mike Evans side a little bit more. I know Gibbs is slightly higher, but the half PPR looks really nice with Mike Evans. Yeah. Steven, that's what I would do. Oh, I like Gibbs, but I think Mike Evans. That's a tough one because it's half PPR, but I do like Roschon's trajectory to take over this backfield, and he can be a 3-down back. Okay, final call, Steven. Gibbs and Roschon Johnson side. I think we're going to go that way. Yeah, let's make final call. Okay, Gibbs and Roschon. Denver versus Washington. Do I do a Sutton or Dotson? I have Hayden Hurst on deck. Tight end premium. Jerry Jeudy might be back for this game. I'm not certain. But what I was certain of was getting the Terry McLaurin, Josh Dotson call correct last week. I don't know if you remember, but that's what I would say is look back. I don't get everything right. I see some of y'all putting it in the chat that, I'm getting lots of things right. And I do get lots of things right, but some of the things, I like the Isaiah Likely thing. I totally missed. But once again, I would do that again. It was the right process. He had great production previously. He crushed in college. If you were going to start Isaiah Likely, it was going to be when Mark Andrews was out. So that makes sense. So, and I said Josh Dotson over Terry McLaurin. McLaurin is clearly not back from that toe injury. He had the turf toe. That's what's limiting him. Josh Dotson had like 5 targets and 3 receptions or something in the first half of the game. And that's exactly what you want to see. You want to see 4 or 5 targets in the first half. And then I don't know what happened with Sam Howell, but hopefully Howell figures out how to get the ball a little bit more to Josh Dotson, because Josh Dotson is not going to go away. He was a player last year that I was very much in on. And if we look at what Washington had going on in their offense, I mean, Dotson 5 for 40, 5 receptions, 7 targets. He led the team in targets. McLaurin only had 2 catches for 31 yards. So I think we're probably leaning Josh Dotson, even if, I think we're leaning Josh Dotson because I think Jeudy is going to be back. The Denver Broncos take on Washington in Denver. This over-under is 39. What? Wait, what? And Denver is the home favorite. So I think we're going to go Josh Dotson. They're going to play catch up. This is the 4:00 window. This could get into a very interesting situation where I don't think that Terry McLaurin is back to full health yet. I mean, clearly 61 receiving grade is not what you want to see for a star receiver. 0.91 yards per route run. I mean, Dotson wasn't much better in this matchup, but give me Jahan Dotson as the big touchdown play, big play waiting to happen type of guy. So give me Josh Dotson over Courtland Sutton. I think Sutton mostly produced, but if Jeudy is out, that's where Sutton becomes a little bit more interesting. I'm not going to play Hayden Hurst, though. Sorry, Dadalorian. All right, Crypto King, please clicks to the moon. Josh Kelly and Miles Sanders are my running backs. I also picked up Kyron Williams. It's not looking great. Unless Austin Eckler misses, it's not looking great. Sorry. You want me to give you honest, straight up, advice. The Chargers play the Tennessee Titans. This is an over under 45. The Tennessee Titans are home dogs. which is interesting. I think this game could turn into more of a shootout, which may move away from Josh Kelly. I liked how Kelly was efficient last week, but I'm not convinced that it's repeatable because we've seen years of Josh Kelly not being good. And Miles Sanders is also not great. Kyron Williams. This is just it's ugly situation. I'm sorry you have to go through this, Crypto King, because it's a tough spot. So no, I don't like it. I give it like a C minus. It's not looking too hot. It'll look better if Austin Eckler's out. Maybe we can get it into C plus range. B minus range is the best I can do if Eckler's out, but I'm not super optimistic. Crypto King. Richard said he found me at the end of last season. Appreciate you checking me out and sticking with me. Alex subscribed. If you, like Alex, like the content, find it helpful, make sure you hit that red subscribe button, guys. It really helps the channel continue to grow. Should I drop Love or tank Bigsby for Kendrick Bourne? Depends on who's your first quarterback, because there's no way Jordan Love is your first quarterback. So I would keep tank Bigsby. I don't trust that Kendrick Bourne is fully going to be the wide receiver you want on New England. I think it's going to be more of a weekly rotation sort of thing. I mean, Kayshon Boutte, right, played most of the snaps in this game, along with Kendrick Bourne. Demario Davis also played in this game. Devontae Parker did not. Tank Bigsby is clearly the handcuff for Travis Etienne, and we saw Tank Bigsby have a little standalone value anyways. So I would pick up Tank Bigsby. Crypto King, appreciate you. Yeah, I haven't proven you wrong. You know, so I do get some things wrong, but you know, it also, I want to revel in victory. I was telling people all off season, Calvin Ridley's the guy. Calvin Ridley's the guy. Calvin Ridley's the guy. And what happens? Calvin Ridley's the guy. I tell people off season, I'm 10 spots ahead of ADP or tight end positional rankings on Hunter Henry. What does Hunter Henry do right out of the gate? Tight end 1 overall. I didn't say he was going to be tight end 1, but I was seismically different on Hunter Henry, and my reasoning stayed, right? I said Hunter Henry was going to be the tight end, and Gesicki plays more of the wide receiver role, and that's what happened. It's almost like following the stats makes sense, right? We know the kind of patterns in which how these teams operate. So I don't get everything right. The Isaiah Likely miss was a big one by me last week, but frankly, everyone was starting Isaiah Likely. Like I was too bullish on him, sure, but mistakes were made, and you know I'll own up to that. It was wrong, like the wrong conclusion. But sometimes the process will still get you the wrong outcome. It's not a perfect science, but if there was time to start Isaiah Likely, it was last week. Steven, Joe, I appreciate you. Thanks for subbing. And if you guys also haven't subbed and you like the content, hit that red subscribe button. I don't mind if you turn off or on the notification. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, if you want to know when I go live, sure. Like my life is a little crazy because, you know, I got a full-time job and I've got a nice, a big family, and I love my family, and my wife is sleeping upstairs. So if that's like, this is the time. So I may have like inconsistent-ish times of going live, but I love it. I love doing this with you guys. And because of your support, I was able to get a new camera, so you can tell like this camera is new compared to last year. The microphone is new compared to last year. I've got a whole new setup. I've got like a stand for my laptop here, and maybe if I, if you guys continue to support me, I'll be able to, get the dual screens and other things and get subs and whatnot to continue to put it out. So put out good content for you, and I want to just continue to level up for y'all. So appreciate your support. As we've started strong this off season, we've had over 200 new subscribers in the last week. And right now, we're 2 away from 1,400, which is exciting. So if you haven't subbed, make sure you hit that red subscribe button. All right, Javonte Williams or AJ Dillon? If Aaron Jones is out, you're probably starting A.J. Dillon. But if it's Javonte versus A.J. coin flip, it's Javonte Williams. It's Javonte Williams. Let's look at what Javonte Williams was able to do for Denver this past week. Javonte Williams led Denver in rush grade. He led Denver in rush yards, led Denver in rush attempts. So he's the lead back. It's just a matter of, is he going to be efficient enough? 4 yards per carry is fine. 3 yards after contact per attempt is good. Pass blocking, not great, but he caught 4 passes. Only 5 yards, though. 0.4 yards per route run, not great and not very elusive. He had 1 run for 10 or more yards. He's going to be okay. Like, Javonte will be just fine. So, yes, you're starting Javonte Williams over A.J. Dillon unless we find out Aaron Jones is out. Ty, 10 team. Okay, 10 team PPR, Allen Eckler, Walker, Amon-Ra, Dotson, Andrews, James Cook, Deontay, Kirk, Herbert, Charbonnet, Algier, Roshan Bateman, Gainwell, Ahmed. Would you trade Herbert or Algier for Mike Williams? I mean, if you're starting a flex, yeah, you're going to want to trade Herbert for Mike Williams if you can. I don't know if you realize this, but Mike Williams in previous years was mostly an outside wide receiver. Like, he's a big-bodied former first-round pick from the LA Chargers, big-time outside player. Instead, Mike Williams in this game, 42% snaps in the slot. Let's compare that to his career. Mike Williams' career high, 36% snaps in the slot. Last 2 years, 15%, 17%, 23%. Okay, that was the third year. 3 years, he hasn't eclipsed 24% in the slot. Week 1, right out of the gate, 43% slot snaps. Now, he got hurt in this game, which is why his stats don't look very good. 35 pass snaps. But, yes, you want to be buying low on Mike Williams. Kellen Moore is just starting to experiment. And if Austin Eckler is out, Mike Williams could be the one who could absolutely crush. Remember, Mike Williams was the 7th overall pick back in 2017. So I like trading Khalil Herbert, especially as a sell candidate for Mike Williams. Seacrip, Zay Flowers, DeAndre Hopkins, Joe Mixon, Kenneth Walker, Javonte, Rashad White, Khalil Herbert, Algier. Whew, that's a lot. You need a running back in flex. So you're starting at running back Kenneth Walker. Yeah, that's an easy one. And then at the flex, Hopkins is questionable, but if he's good to go, you're plugging in Hopkins. Yeah, you're plugging in Hopkins, but I like Zay Flowers as a wide receiver 2 possibility. Yeah, I think I would go Hopkins and then Flowers as the possible flexes. DeLorean started likely over Hunter and Sky Moore over Sutton last week. Oh, that hurts your soul, right? Javonte or Swift this week. I think you're going Javonte. There's nothing to indicate to us that DeAndre Swift is going to be the one to handle significant workload. It's probably going to be Rashad Penny or Swift, but we don't have confidence with that. What we do have confidence is Javonte Williams handled the majority of the carries and was working out of the backfield and put up some interesting efficiency metrics. So I think Javonte is the play this week. I would bench Swift, and that hurts my soul as a Swift guy. Oh, who would we play? Roshan Johnson? Yeah, Javonte Williams still. Wilson for Cup. I have Chase Eckler and Olave. So you're trading Garrett Wilson to receive Cooper Kupp. I would still keep Garrett Wilson right now. I know that sounds bad, but Cooper Kupp could just be out for the year. We haven't heard anything. Not even like, oh, there's been optimism that Cooper Kupp could be back off the IR. No. Can't, no optimism there. The Ivy Catholic, an idea for weekly clip game to add some spice to the stream. Which fantasy player do you think will have the biggest bust, and which will have the biggest boom? Ooh, that's a good one. That is a good one. Let me look at some contenders. Let me offer a couple contenders. Okay. Yeah, I like Michael Thomas this week. I think he is in an interesting spot to outperform. I kind of mentioned him as a high floor play. Yeah, Mike Williams, I mentioned as well, could be very interesting. I like those two. Let's go Mike Williams and Michael Thomas as two players that could boom pretty nicely this week. And then to bust this week, I mean, Michael Gallup's a pretty easy one. He's going against the Jets. That's an easy bust. Rashad Bateman, easy bust. Oh, man. Who else? You know, as long as Christian Watson does play, Romeo Doubs is most likely going to be a bust. Jordan Addison, I've mentioned as a player that I'm looking for ways to bench him. Okay, so that's who I would. They're the Ivy Catholic. We'll see if any of those hit for us. Would you trade Jonathan Taylor for Dotson straight up? Wide receivers are Garrett Wilson, Amon-Ra, Watson, Dotson, Flowers. Running backs, Gibbs, Swift. I need running back help. Yeah, I mean, your wide receivers are looking pretty solid. I would be okay with that. No, or you could offer Flowers and Swift for Kenneth Walker. Flowers and Swift for Walker. I like that. Yeah. Let's do that. Flowers and Swift for Walker. I want to bench Akers against the Niners, but do I start OBJ or Rashid Shaheed? I think you start Rashid Shaheed. That's who I would pick. Let's look at the Rashid Shaheed breakdown. Yeah, he's got a good matchup against Carolina. Rashid Shaheed should play a lot against Dante Jackson and CJ Henderson. Yeah, that's that. And with no JC Horn, yeah, give me some Rashid Shaheed in this matchup. Hopefully he hits the spike for us. Cool. Let's look at a few other players. I don't think you're playing KJ Osborne. He's just not very good. And he's probably going to be rotating with the Darius Slay treatment. So KJ Osborne is a player that we should not be looking to put into our starting lineups. Just can't do it. Just can't do it for KJ Osborne. Right. I know that he's still full-time player. Just because you're a full-time player, could he have a spike week? Yes. Is he someone that I'm confident starting? No. He's more of a best ball play. Like, we don't know when KJ Osborne's going to come up, but it probably isn't going to be this matchup. So let's not get carried away here with trying to predict when this KJ Osborne player, who's not particularly good, is going to find his way into our lineups. Okay. Let's look at some Philadelphia players now. In particular, I want to talk about the running back situation, because as we know that Rashad Penny was out last week. We'll talk about Rashad Penny here in a little bit, but DeAndre Swift, 1 reception, 35 receiving grade. DeAndre Swift was in on 17 pass snaps, ran 13 routes, 76.5% route percentage. But when it came to the rushing, DeAndre Swift, 1 carry, 3 yards, 59 rush grade. 2 yards after contact per attempt. It was bad. It was just bad all around for DeAndre Swift. And he's given us no reason to be like, hey, this is interesting for us. I mean, Swift only had 2 attempts the entire preseason. And he had no receptions. So what are we going to do with DeAndre Swift? We can't start him with any confidence. Like, if you are putting Swift into your lineup, it's more of a contrarian play. It's more of I'm just betting on the talent of what I know DeAndre Swift in previous years. But the Philadelphia Eagles haven't given us a reason to put him into our lineups. It feels Kadarius Toney-ish. Like, we like skill sets. We like what he's done in the past in some spike week situations. But how can we have confidence in DeAndre Swift this week? I don't see a pathway for it. He's given us no stats. The staff has given us no reason. The coaching staff has given us no reason to trust that DeAndre Swift will get the volume that he needs, the goal line work that he needs in Philadelphia. It's concerning, even with Kenneth Gainwell out. Instead, let's move to Boston Scott. Scott had as many rushing yards, as many rush attempts, had nearly the same PFF rush grade, same yards after contact per attempt, better pass blocking, better receiving grade, better yards per route run than DeAndre Swift. The same amount of receptions. So Boston Scott, I think, is, if you're playing DFS and you want a deep, low percentage running back, consider Boston Scott. But that's, once again, this is going to be an ugly, ugly game. We can look at what Rashad Penny did last year, but Rashad Penny wasn't super efficient either. I mean, let's look at Seattle. What he did for Seattle last year. Rashad Penny, 74 rushing grade, which is fine. 4.2 yards after contact per attempt. That's also fine. 6 yards per attempt. Fine. But he only had one big blow-up game. And that was against Detroit. 17 for 151, 2 touchdowns. If I'm taking shots on a running back in Philadelphia, it's Rashad Penny. Now, the level of confidence that I have in the Rashad Penny start is very low. So let's not get carried away. Let's look at the preseason for 2023 for Rashad Penny. In his 2 preseason games, he had 11 attempts, averaged 4.7 yards per carry, 57 rush grade, not great, 3.4 yards after contact per attempt. Didn't do almost anything in the passing game. But that's exactly what you need in Philadelphia, is just a Miles Sanders type who doesn't need to catch the ball. So Rashad Penny, as I said, is going to be my pick to lead this team in carries, but it's not a confident pick. It could just be a 3-way split, or it could be Penny and DeAndre Swift splitting 40-40, and then it's Boston Scott getting a sprinkling in of 20%. It's not a situation that I'm targeting, but if I'm forced to make a decision, Rashad Penny's the guy. Ivy Catholic said your David Montgomery week 1 prediction was prophetic. Yeah, I said David Montgomery would score a touchdown. So that was nice. That worked out pretty well. There were reasons why we were in on that. And then if we look at the offensive line, defensive line situation, it's clear that Philadelphia has the pass. They're going to be able to pass pretty well against Minnesota. Like, per PFF, they have a 33% pass advantage on the offensive line. So that's pretty good. But the rushing, on the other hand, is neutral. Like, it won't move the needle for us. Minnesota, on the other hand, is in a lot of trouble, which is why we need to be fading Kirk Cousins. Okay. There are lots of reasons to fade Kirk Cousins. One of those reasons is it's a primetime game. Kirk Cousins, not usually very good in primetime games, but that's more narrative driven. It's that the pass grade differential for Minnesota against Philadelphia is the second worst among all matchups. Negative 38% per PFF. Negative 38% in the pass grade. The rush grade should be okay for Minnesota. Like Alexander Madison is an okay start, but the passing game is going to be in a lot of trouble. So once again, if Jordan Addison is the second or third receiver on this team, like Justin Jefferson's going to get his, but it's going to be hard to see spike weeks for the ancillary pass catching pieces of the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, even looking at the tight end matchups, TJ Hawkinson is probably going to be okay. 22% targets per route, which is what Darren Waller was doing. But, we'll see whether TJ Hawkinson gets a little bit more attention from this Philadelphia offense, given the inexperience that Jordan Addison has and the inconsistencies that KJ Osborne has. I wonder if TJ Hawkinson gets collapsed on a little bit more. And if that's the case, maybe this is more of a TJ Hawkinson game that Kirk Cousins just continues to dump off. I mean, Hawkinson already got 8 receptions, 9 targets in week 1. So it would not surprise me then if TJ Hawkinson is the one to reap the benefits. It's going to be like a Kirk Cousins 7 for 70 game for Hawkinson. And Jefferson gets his 100 yards and Addison gets like 4 or 5 for 50. That's not going to get it done for you from a fantasy perspective. So I think we're fading Kirk Cousins. We are fading Jordan Addison. We are tempering expectations for DeAndre Swift. And we are a little bullish relative to market on TJ Hawkinson. I think Hawkinson will be just fine. Yeah. And then we're starting AJ Brown. We're starting Devonta Smith. Both of these players are auto starts for us. Okay, cool. So I think that does a real nice wrap up for us for Thursday Night Football. I don't think there's any other pieces that are really of note, like Alexander Madison. We can take a second and talk about Alexander Madison as a player that for Minnesota handled the vast majority of running back touches. But looking at how it broke down ultimately this year, Madison still 58 rush grade, 3.1 yards per attempt. Not great. 11 attempts for Minnesota, 2.4 yards after contact per attempt. Not something that's amazing for us. 4 targets, 3 receptions. That's fine. 10 receiving yards. Not great. And 0.4 yards per route run. That's disastrous. Yeah. So Madison's doing nothing in the passing game. He's nothing special in the run game. If only there was, a yards after contact monster on this roster that could handle between the tackles and be an efficient runner. Oh, wait. There is a guy. His name is Dwayne McBride. Dwayne McBride, 2.25 yards after contact per attempt in the preseason. 2 touchdowns he was able to convert on 20 attempts. So give me some Dwayne McBride. Continue to give me Dwayne McBride, but I don't know if he'll be active for this game. Ty Chandler didn't do much in week 1 either. So Alexander Madison, again, low-end running back 2 in week 2. All right, everyone. I think that'll do it for tonight. Dad DeLorean says good night, everyone. We're calling it. I've got work in the morning, got some meetings. Appreciate y'all tuning in late at night. There we go. I traded Madison for Kamara straight up in one of my leagues. Doesn't move the needle for me one way or the other. That's fine. Let's see. Will Gibbs explode? He's my running back 1. I think he will. Let's go. All right. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Till next time. And by next time, I mean, we'll probably do a live stream on Friday or Saturday, or maybe both. Maybe Sunday. Who knows? So if you want to turn on your notifications, be my guest. If you like the content, you find this helpful, hit that red subscribe button. Till next time, everyone. Good luck in the fantasy football streets.
I embrace all this risk, I'm insane. Talking about that BestBell, I'm the best tail. Into the next world, guess I got next still. BestBell, I'm the best tail. Into the next world, guess I got next still.